What's up everyone? Alex here. Typically, when we finish an RPG, we keep on moving on to the next best thing, always ready and willing to take on new quests. But what happens if you need a break, when the thought of playing yet another 40+ hour adventure seems daunting? What if you needed to hit pause for a brief moment? That's the kind of getaway that Littlewood offers, a fun little game that'll have you living your best life without it getting in the way of making it great. This review is made possible by viewers like you, so please leave a like, comment, then subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. Littlewood is a retro-styled slice-of-life simulator with activity-based RPG progression systems, published by Smash Games and solely developed by Sean Young, who provided this review code shown running on the Nintendo Switch. Congratulations! You won! But not all is well, I'm afraid, because after you bested the Dark Wizard, you seem to have lost all memory of what happened, including who you were. Time passes, and you find yourself waking up in the remains of a town destroyed by your foe, with friends you've no memory of. It's here where your life as a former hero begins, with the hopes of uncovering the mysteries of who you are, while helping breathe life into the town you've called home. Typically, developers versed in this genre often design their games in such a way that it prevents players from fashioning their locales as close to their ideal design quickly, which can come across as accidentally punitive. But Littlewood diverges from its genre's conventions in that it allows for an experience that doesn't hinder your creativity when designing the town of your dreams. For starters, if you decide at any point to move a house from one part of town to another, all you have to do is activate build mode and you'll be able to terraform and move almost everything in town to your heart's content. And by almost, I mean everything except bugs, because you can't really move them. Anything you destroy or terraform while in this mode will go back into your inventory with no penalty whatsoever, and you're immediately able to utilize them however you so wish. The only limitation is your imagination. And town size, which you can upgrade later. At some point, you're eventually going to run out of materials to build the various houses and facilities around town, which means that you'll have to start acquiring resources that eventually need to be processed. Other games will require you to constantly discover and find new raw materials to use for increasingly complicated building projects. Littlewood chooses to make this more efficient by only having 3 different kinds of lumber and brick each that you can craft, requiring its own distinct raw material. This makes the acquisition and processing of these resources simpler, to the point where it's easy to understand what you're going to need at any given time. Except for a few exceptions, there are usually no limits as to what kind of resources you can acquire, only that you have the necessary tools to do so. While some games require you to equip the right tools in order to acquire these raw materials, Littlewood merely asks you to press the A button to do the action, which results in a more intuitive experience. Littlewood also features designated biomes that you can reach via air balloon. Each of these contain multiple areas that can be unlocked just by leveling an activity, usually one that directly corresponds to that biome's raw materials. Activities in Littlewood are actions that describe the acquisition of different resources, may they be money, raw or processed materials, or flora and fauna. Every time you sell something, chop a tree, or mine some rocks for instance, your actions will count towards that specific activity's experience point bar, which functions pretty much like any RPG leveling system would. The only limitation you have is that each activity drains your energy bar, which is also indicated with the passage of time. Littlewood does not use a real-time day and night cycle, and once nighttime comes, it's a sign that you're about to use up all your energy. This also means that you can take as much time as you want to figure out what to do on any given day, provided that you have enough energy left to do whatever you want. While I've mainly only really talked about acquiring and processing building materials, much of the game's other resources have a similar level of depth that makes remembering what you need a bit easier than most other games. That being said, if you're a huge fan of the discovery and creation of newer and bolder materials and items, you might be disappointed with how little, no pun intended, Littlewood will offer in that regard. But to folks who just want to dip their toes in the genre without feeling overwhelmed or intimidated by what's required of them, Littlewood's gameplay will serve their needs well. Perhaps one of the most surprising aspects of Littlewood is how effective its storytelling is. While the concept is not exclusive to this game, I do find that Littlewood's unique premise gives you additional motivation to progress and continue attracting new settlers to your town. It also allows for the townsfolk to know something that you don't. This sets up for interesting conversations, with some occasionally recounting events that you know nothing about. This method of storytelling is fascinating in that the way Littlewood conveys these tales feels authentic despite its retro presentation, with some folks even expressing their reluctance in trying to make you remember the past. From a gameplay standpoint, conversing with townsfolk is also an effective way to build relationships with them, which isn't so dissimilar to another game, Animal Crossing. In that game, you'll want to speak to each townfolk once a day in order to improve your relationships. This action is, of course, quantified in Littlewood by an experience point system for each of the folk living in your town. You're also given the choice to compliment them if you wish to date them later on. You can also invite them to hang out with you, which will occasionally yield money when partaking in activities, as well as improve your relationship with them. When you've sufficiently improved your relationship with at least 2 townsfolk, you'll trigger a special event that gives you more insight into their personality, which is a great way to infuse a storytelling break into the minutiae of what you're doing. However, relationships aren't the only aspect of Animal Crossing that Littlewood borrows. Soon enough, you'll be able to create a town hall and become the designated mayor, or whatever you want to call yourself, of your town. It's here that you'll be able to buy wishes with your hard-earned cash. Wishes allow for all sorts of perks to become activated, from increasing the sale cost of weeds to increasing the amount of fish or bugs that spawn in town. And because this is an upgradable facility, you can unlock more types of wishes when you've reached certain upgrade ranks. In fact, many of the facilities you can build can be upgraded multiple times, throwing a little bit of complexity into the mix. Each rank unlocks different perks and requires a good bit of money and materials to upgrade, and it's up to you to decide which facilities to upgrade over another. Thankfully, you can view the various perks you'll earn in later ranks, which helps a lot when planning what to focus on. My favorite facilities have to be the coffee shop, which increases your activity XP gain depending on what you've consumed, as well as the smelter and lumberyard upgrades that randomly give you extra materials during crafting. By embedding the need to constantly improve your town's facilities and chatting with your townsfolk in your list of daily tasks, Littlewood tricks you into empathizing with the well-being of its inhabitants. And if you even pay attention to what they say just for a little bit, you might even catch a glimpse and see small moments of vulnerability from each of them. Throughout my time with my town's citizens, I've come to appreciate the variety that they provide each day, even though their assistance usually amounts to some dewdrops, the game's currency, or some random resource. It's the right kind of engagement that's not overbearing, allowing you to toil away with your personal goals without being burdened with a story that you need to remember. Its singular premise cleverly frames every conversation in such a succinct manner that when things start to get revealed, its effects feel just as powerful regardless of your attachment to the story. That said, it doesn't tell the most complex of stories, but for a game called Littlewood, you certainly wouldn't expect to find this level of storytelling in such a small package. While it won't scratch your itch if you're looking for a game with deep crafting and gathering mechanics, I do think that Littlewood is one of those rare games that truly reflects the genre's promise of a low-key, relaxing time. It allows players of all sorts to just simply visit a world and enjoy living a relatively carefree life with individuals who want nothing more than to see you succeed. It's a perfect game for anyone who needs a vacation from the lengthy expeditions of other games, as well as players who need a short respite from more intense experiences. No matter what, I think there's a room in your collection for Littlewood, and I'm certain that when you give it a shot, that you'll find lots to like every time you visit your quaint little town.